Hello, my dear students. Myself, Deepak Rai, Senior Staff Professor, School of Pharmacy, University Lucknow. Today, I am going to cover the three important and basic topics of the blood pharmacology, that is hematinics, coagulants, and anticoagulants in this video lecture. So, first coming to the hematinics. So, these are basically substances required in the formation of blood and are used for treatment of anemia. Anemia occurs when there is an imbalance between production and distribution, and it may be due to blood loss, acute or chronic blood loss, or maybe due to impaired red cell formation due to deficiency of essential factors like iron, vitamin B, folic acid, or maybe due to bone marrow depression leading to aplastic anemia or erythropoietin deficiency. And increased destruction of RBC in case of hemolytic anemia also causes the RBC depletion and anemic conditions. Now coming to the history of iron. Iron has for long been considered important for the body, and now hospital calcium iron has been used in ancient Indian medicine. According to Greek thought, Mars is the god of strength and iron is dedicated to Mars. Thus, iron was used for weakness, which is common in anemic conditions. And in 1713, iron was first time present in the blood. So, it is all about the history of iron. Now, come to the iron distribution in the body. Total body iron in adult ranges from 2.5 to 5 gram, and on a bed it is about 3.5. It is more in about 50 ml per kg than that is 38 ml per kg, and it is distributed maximally in the hemoglobin near about 66%, and iron also stored as ferritin and bone marrow, and it is about 25% of total iron present in the body, and they are also present in hemoglobin, and that is muscles in about 3% components, and in parenchymal iron that is in lime, that is present in about 6% composition of the body. Iron is stored only in ferric form and in combination with large protein apophytin. So, as here in this case you can see apophytin combines with the ferric iron and forms the ferritin. And when the ferritin aggregates, it forms a new ferritin that is not non-reusable form of the ferric iron. So, ferric iron are specifically stored as ferric iron. Daily requirement of iron. In adult male, it ranges from 0.5 to 1 mg, and adult female, it ranges from 1 to 2 mg. In plants, it is about 60 microgram per kg, and children, it is about 25 microgram per kg. In pregnancy, especially last 2 trimester, it ranges from 3 to 5 mg or 80 mg per kg. And the dietary sources. So they are basically categorized in 3 sources: the rich source, medium source, and poor source. The rich source, its dietary source include liver, egg yolk, mustard, dried beans, dried fruit, wheat, grains, and yeast. And medium source include meat, chicken, fish, spinach, banana, cabbage. And the poor sources include milk and fodder and vegetables. Now coming to the absorption iron. When the iron is ingested in the form of dietary iron, then it is in ferric form, and it is then converted to the ferrous form and transported to the mucosal cells. And here the ferrous form of iron get converted into ferric form, and it binds to the ferritin molecule, and through exfoliation get transported to the reticuloendothelial cells. And in the reticuloendothelial cells, and transferrin receptors are present, and transferrin the protein binds with the transferrin receptor and then binds to ferritin, and it transports the ferritin through plasma to up to erythrocytes. And in erythrocytes again the transferrin receptors are present, through which the transferrin binds, and the two ferritin molecules get incorporated in the RBCs, and here the ferrous form is again released and get incorporated into the hemoglobin. So it is all about the this diabetic iron transport. So most absorbed iron is transported in the bloodstream bound to the protein, as I already said, transferrin. Transferrin is basically a parent protein that plays a important regulatory transport of iron from the site of absorption to Golgi arteries. Transferring binds protein and it is one of the like transferring bind only two RNA atoms. And normally 20 to 45% of transferring binding sites are filled as measured as a partial transfer saturation, that is called TS. Now, come to iron storage. Iron is initially stored in 15 marble. A single 15 marble can store 4,000 iron atoms. When excess dietary iron is absorbed, the body responds by producing more ferritin to facilitate iron storage. And iron formulations. So iron formulations are basically categorized into two categories: oral iron formulations and parenteral iron formulations. In oral iron formulations, ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, and ferrous fumate comes, and parenteral iron formulations, iron desktop, iron sucrose complex, and iron sodium gluconate complex. Now coming to oral iron therapy. Treatment with oral iron should be controlled for 3 to 4 months after correction of the cause of fractures. And this corrects the anemia and replaces iron store. And the common adverse effects of oral iron therapy include nausea, epigastric discomfort, abdominal cramps, constipation, diarrhea. And these effects are usually dose related. Yeah, and can often be overcome by lowering the daily dose of iron or by taking the tablets immediately after or with meals. Secondly, when the parenteral iron therapy, in parenteral iron therapy, they are prescribed for patients with documented iron deficiency who are unable to tolerate or absorb iron. And for patients with extensive proliferate loss who cannot be maintained oral iron alone, and like in clinical post-gastric condition, periods are involved inflammatory bowel disease and malabsorption syndrome. Yeah, parenteral iron therapy are coming to therapeutic use of iron. So basically, iron is given for iron deficiency anemia. Oral iron therapy, in oral iron therapy, ferrous salt of sulfate, fumate, gluconate, lactate, succinate, and glycine sulfate are especially preferred. And ferric salts, ferric ammonium citrate, iron percitrate, and ferric hydroxide polymaltose complex are preferred. And ferrous salt better absorbed than ferric salts. So it is all about the iron. We have covered the Now, firstly, coming to the introduction section of the vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 basically serves as a cofactor for several essential biochemical conditions in humans, and its deficiency leads to anemia, gastrointestinal symptoms, and neurological abnormalities. And although deficiency of vitamin B12 due to an inadequate supply in the diet is unusual, deficiency of vitamin B12 in adult, especially older adult, due to inadequate absorption of dietary vitamin B12 is relatively common and easily treated disorder. Now coming to chemistry, vitamin B12 consists of a porphyrin-like ring with a central cobalt atom attached to nucleotide, and various organic groups may be covalently bound to the cobalt atom, forming different covalents. And deoxyadenosine cobalamin, methylcobalamin are the two active forms of vitamin B12 that are found in humans. And forms like sancobalamin and hydroxycobalamin, and as it is mentioned that both are available for therapeutic use, and other cobalamins found in food source are converted to the active form. The ultimate source of vitamin B12 is from microbial synthesis. The vitamin is not synthesized by animals or plants. The key dietary source of vitamin B12 is microbially derived vitamin B12 in meat, specifically from liver, and also in eggs and dairy products. And vitamin B12 is sometimes called intrinsic factor to differentiate it from intrinsic factor. And intrinsic factor are basically protein normally secreted by the stomach. Now coming to the pharmacokinetics, the average diet contains 5 to 30 microgram vitamin B12 daily, and 1 to 5 microgram of it is usually absorbed. The vitamin is uh, avidly stored primarily in the liver, with an average adult having a total vitamin B12 storage pool of 3000 to 5000 microgram. And only a trace amount of vitamin B12 are normally lost in urine and stool because the normal daily requirement of vitamin B12 are only about 2 microgram, and it would take about 5 years for all of the stored vitamin B12 to be exhausted and for megaloblastic anemia to develop if B12 absorption stops. The vitamin B12 is physiologic amount is absorbed only after it complexes with the intrinsic factor. That is basically glycoprotein secreted by the parietal cells of the intestinal fossa. Intrinsic factors combines with the vitamin B12 that is liberated from dietary source in the stomach and duodenum. And the intrinsic factor vitamin B12 complex is subsequently absorbed in the distal area portion of the intestine by a highly specialized intermediate transport system. And vitamin B12 deficiency in humans most often results from the malabsorption of vitamin B12 due to lack of intrinsic factors or due to loss of malfunction of the specific absorption mechanism of the distal ileum. And the nutritional deficiency is rare but may be seen in strict vegetarian, so after many years without meat, eggs, or other dairy products. And once absorbed, vitamin is transported to various cells of the body, bound to the plasma glycoprotein transcobalamin second, and extra vitamin B12 is transported to the liver or the stomach. Now to the pharmacological action. Two essential enzymatic reactions in humans require vitamin B12. In one, methylcobalamin serves as an intermediate in the transfer of methyl group from the N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate to homocysteine forming methionine. Without vitamin B12, conversion of the major dietary storage folate, that is N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate, the precursor of folate cofactor, cannot occur. And as a result, the deficiency of folate cofactor necessary for several biological reactions involving the transfer of one carbon group develop. Particularly, if we are talking that the depletion of tetrahydrofolate prevents the synthesis of adequate supplies of deoxythioamidate, that is called DMT, and then subsequently that is a part of urine, and then it hinders the PV synthesis in the rapidly divided cells. Here in this figure, we can see that for the conversion of N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate to tetrahydrofolate, cobalamin is required and it is converted into methylcobalamin, and for the conversion of homocysteine into methionine, methylcobalamin is required and it is converted into cobalamin. So in this way, tetrahydrofolate gets synthesized. And in the second point, you can see through the utilization of deoxymethylcobalamin, L-methylmalonyl coenzyme it converted to 6-coenzyme in the presence of methylmalonyl coenzyme A-inhibitase. So for these two specific reactions, two isoforms of the vitamin are required. That is methylcobalamin and deoxyethylcobalamin. The accumulation of folate as N5-methyl tetrahydrofolate and the excessive depletion of tetrahydrofolate cofactors in vitamin B12 deficiency have been referred to as basically the methyl folate trap. And this is the biochemical structure whereby the vitamin B12 and folic acid requirements are linked. And it explains why the megaloblastic anemia of vitamin B12 deficiency can be partially corrected by ingestion of relatively large amount of folic acid. Now folic acid can be reduced to dihydrofolate by the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase and thus serves as a source of tetrahydrofolate required for the synthesis of purines and D-thiamidate phosphate that are needed for DNA synthesis. In this way, their absence or uh, non-management leads to inhibition of DNA synthesis. The other enzymatic reaction that requires chemical, as already explained in the figure, is isomerization of methylamine coenzyme to succinyl by the enzyme methylamine coenzyme nuclease. In vitamin B12 deficiency, this conversion cannot take place and the substrate methylamine coenzyme accumulates. And in the past, it was thought that abnormal accumulation of methylamine coenzyme causes the neurological manifestations. They cause various neurological disorders of vitamin deficiency. However, neuroprognosis instead indicates that the disruption of the methylene synthesis pathway as the cause of neurological neurological problem. Now, firstly, coming to the introduction section. Reduced forms of folic acid are required for essential biochemical reactions that provide precursors for the synthesis of amino acids, purines, and DNA. And folate deficiency is not uncommon. Even though the deficiency is easily corrected by administration of folic acid, the consequences of folate deficiency go beyond the problem of anemia. Because folate deficiency is implicated as a cause of congenital malformation in newborns and may play a role in various vascular diseases. Now coming to chemistry. Folic acid, that is basically teroyl glutamic acid, is composed of a heterocycle pteridine ring, para-aminobenzoic acid, and a glutamic acid. Various numbers of glutamic acid moieties may be attached to the teroyl portion of the molecule, resulting in monoglutamates, triglutamates, or polyglutamates. Folic acid can undergo reduction catalyzed by the enzyme the dihydrofolate reductase, that is also called as folate reductase, to give dihydrofolic acid. Tetrahydrofolate can subsequently be transferred to folate cofactor possessing 1 carbon units attached to the 5 nitrogen, to the 10 nitrogen, or to the both positions. The folate cofactors are interconvertible by various enzymatic reactions and serve the important biochemical functions of donating 1 carbon units at various levels of oxidation. In most of these, tetrahydrofolate is regenerated and becomes available for reutilization. So here in this figure, you can see that the folic acid composed of three major components, that is the pteridine ring, PABA structure, and the glutamic acid. So the pteridine and PABA together form the teroyl or teroic acid, and all these three components of together form the folic acid. Now coming to pharmacokinetics of folic acid. The average diet contains 500 to 700 microgram of folates daily, 50 to 200 microgram of which is usually absorbed and depending upon metabolic requirements. Pregnant women may absorb as much as 300 to 400 microgram of folic acids daily. And various forms of folic acids are present in a wide variety of plants and animal tissues. The richest source are yeast, liver, kidney, and green vegetables. Normally, 5 to 20 mg of folates are stored in the liver and other tissues. Folates are basically excreted in the urine and stools and are also destroyed by catabolism. So, serum levels fall within a few days when intake is diminished. Because body stores of folates are relatively low and daily requirements are high, folic acid deficiency and megaloblastic anemia can develop within 1 to 6 minutes, ranging from 1 to 6 months after the intake of folic acid stops. Depending upon the patient's nutritional status and the rate of folate utilization, unaltered folic acid is readily completely absorbed in the proximal jejunum. The Dietary folates, however, consist primarily of the polyglutamates forms of N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate. And before absorption, all but one of the glutamyl residue of the polyglutamate must be hydrolyzed by the enzyme alpha 1 uh, glutamyl transferase, that is also called conjugase, within the press border of the intestinal mucosa. The monoglutamate N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate is subsequently transported into the bloodstream by both active and passive transport and is then widely distributed throughout the body. Inside cells, N5 methyl tetrahydrofolate is converted to tetrahydrofolate by the methylation by the demethylation reaction that requires vitamin B12. Now coming to the pharmacodynamics. In pharmacodynamics, tetrahydrofolate cofactors participate in one carbon transfer reactions as described earlier in the discussion of vitamin B12. One of these essential reactions produces the DTMP needed for DNA synthesis. In this reaction, the enzyme thymidylate synthetase catalyzes the transfer of the 1 carbon unit of N5 and 10 methylene tetrahydrofolate to deoxyuridine monophosphate or DUMP to form the DTMP. Unlike all other enzymatic reactions that use folate cofactor, in this reaction the cofactor is oxidized to dihydrofolate, and for each mole of DTMP produced, 1 mole of tetrahydrofolate is consumed. In a rapidly proliferating tissue, considerable amounts of tetrahydrofolate are consumed in this reaction, and continued DNA synthesis requires continued regeneration of tetrahydrofolate by reduction of dihydrofolate, catalyzed by the enzyme dihydrofolate reductase. The tetrahydrofolate thus produced can then reform the cofactor N5 and 10 methyl tetrahydrofolate by the action of serine transhydroxymethylase and thus allow for the continued synthesis of DTMP. The combined catalytic activities of DTMP synthase, dihydrofolate reductase, and serine transhydroxymethylase are often referred to as the DTMP synthase cycle. Enzymes in the DTMP cycle are the targets of two anti-cancer drugs, methotrexate, first is methotrexate that inhibits dihydrofolate reductase and the metabolite of 5-fluorouracil, and the second drug is 5-fluorouracil. The metabolite of 5-fluorouracil inhibits thymidylate synthetase. Cofactors of tetrahydrofolate participate in several other essential reactions. N5-methylene tetrahydrofolate is required for the vitamin B12 dependent reaction that generates methionine from homocysteine. In addition, tetrahydrofolate cofactors donate 1 carbon units during the de novo synthesis of essential fluorines. So in these reactions, tetrahydrofolate is regenerated and can re-enter the tetrahydrofolate cofactor pools. Firstly, we are going to discuss the coagulation cascade. Uh, Model of blood coagulation is shown in this figure with tissue factor, that is called TF factor 7, forms an activated complex, that is 7A-TF, that catalyzes the activation of factor 9 to factor 9A. Activated forms of 11A also catalyzes this reaction. Tissue factor pathway inhibitor TFPI inhibits the catalytic reaction of the 7A TF complex, and the cascade proceeds as shown, resulting ultimately in the conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. That is basically an essential component of a functional clot. The two major anticoagulant drugs, that is basically heparin and oral anticoagulant, the major one is the warfarin, have very different actions. And heparin acting in the blood directly activates anticlotting factor, especially the antithrombin factor, which inactivates the factors enclosed in You can see in this figure that it enclosed in rectangles. Warfarin acting in the liver inhibits the synthesis of factors enclosed in the factor enclosed in the circles. And in the protein C and S exert anti-clotting effect by inactivating the activated factors 5A and 8A. So it is all about the coagulation cascade and the inhibitions of different steps of this coagulation cascade by different anticoagulants like oral anticoagulants, antiparin, and by protein C and S is mentioned in this slide. Now coming to the coagulants, these are substances which promote coagulation and are indicated in hemorrhagic states. The most common and most prominent coagulant is the vitamin K. The K1 is obtained from plants, that is fat soluble, and it's also known as phyloquinone, and the K3 that is synthetic, it's also fat soluble, and the major one is the miratiol. So it is here you can see it is the structure of the vitamin K, and it is basically a fat soluble dietary principle required for synthesis of clotting factors. Now coming to the action of vitamin K. Vitamin K acts as cofactor at a late stage in the synthesis of by liver of coagulation proteins prothrombin, factor 7, 9 and 10. The vitamin K dependent chain, that is basically gamma carboxylation of glutamate residue of these Champollion proteins, confers on them the capacity to bind calcium and to get bound to phospholipid surface. That property is essential for participation in the coagulation cascade. Now coming to the utilization. The fat soluble forms of vitamin K are absorbed from the intestine via lymph and requires bile salts for absorption, while the other water soluble forms are absorbed directly into the portal blood. An active transport process occurs in the jejunum has been demonstrated for K1, while K2 and K3 are absorbed by simple decomposition. So it is the difference in the K1 and K2 and K3 form. The vitamin K is only temporarily concentrated in liver, but there are no significant stores in the body. It is metabolized in liver by side chain cleavage and glucuronide conjugation, and metabolites are excreted in bile and urine. Now coming to deficiency. Deficiency of vitamin K occurs due to liver disease, obstructive jaundice, malabsorption, long-term antimicrobial therapy, which alters the intestinal flora. However, the deficient diet is rarely responsible. The most important manifestation is bleeding tendency due to lowering of the levels of uh, prothrombin and other clotting factors in the blood. And hematuria is usually first to occur. And other common sites of bleeding are gastrointestinal tract, nose, and under the skin. That is ecomycosis. Now the preparations of vitamin K. The phytonadione is the one of the major and common preparation of vitamin K. Quinadione is also there. And it is given in the dose of 10 mg per ml for IM injection. Minadione 0.66 mg in kinase CVP with vitamin C, 75 mg. Ferrous gluconate 67 mg. Calcium lactate 300 mg and citrus bioflavonoid 150 mg per capsule. Acetaminophen, that is basically acetaminodione 5, 5 10 mg tablet, capillin 10 mg tablet, monominadione sodium bisulfite 20 mg in Cadisper C with vitamin C 100 mg, uh, and adrenochrome monosemicarbazole 1 mg, rutin 60 mg, and methyl hesperidine 40 mg, calcium phosphate 100 mg per tablet are usually prescribed and administered. Now coming therapeutic uses of the vitamin K. The only use of vitamin K is in the prophylaxis and treatment of bleeding due to deficiency of clotting factors in the following situations. The first is dietary deficiency. Dietary deficiency of vitamin K is very rare in adults. However, when it uh, occurs 5 to 10 mg per day oral or parenteral vitamin K rapidly corrects this defense. And the second is the prolonged antimicrobial therapy. It is used to treat the in the same way as dietary deficiency of vitamin K. And the third condition which it is prescribed is obstructive jaundice or malabsorption syndromes. Here, uh, uh, basically vitamin K 10 mg intramuscular through intramuscular route per day is administered or orally along with bile salts. And the fourth uses the liver disease, especially cirrhosis and viral hepatitis, that is associated with bleeding response poorly to vitamin K. Because of hepatocellular damage, synthesis of clotting factors is inadequate despite the presence of vitamin K. However, vitamin K may be of some use if its absorption had been affected due to lack of bile salts. In newborns, all newborns have low levels of prothrombin and other clotting factors. Further decrease occurs in the next few days. The cause is both lower capacity to synthesize clotting factor as well as the deficiency of vitamin K. The defect is exaggerated in the premature infant. And vitamin K 1 mg IM soon after birth has been recommended routinely. Some prefer administering 5 to 10 mg through intramuscular route to the mother 4 to 12, especially 4 to 12 hours before the delivery. And hemorrhagic diseases of the newborn can be effectively prevented, treated by such medications. The Menadiol, that is specifically the vitamin K3, should not be used for this purpose. The sixth use is in the overdose of oral anticoagulants. This is the most important indication of vitamin K, especially phytonadione, that is K1, is the preparation of choice because it acts most rapidly, and dose depends on the severity of hypoprothrombinemia and bleeding. Unnecessary high dose is to be avoided because it will render the patient unresponsive to oral anticoagulant for several days. So students, today we covered the three topics in this video lecture, and that is in mechanics. In mechanics we covered the